The Hebrew Alef-Bet. Lesson 2. Aleph, Bet, and Mem. The goal today is to memorize 3 letters from the Hebrew Alef-Bet. And with these 3 letters, we will be able to form our very first words. Now, instead of just teaching you the Alef-Bet in order, I'm going to be giving you the letters needed to introduce concepts of Hebrew spelling, syllable division, pronunciation, and grammar. Today it's just 3 letters though, so not all of that will come into play quite yet. The first 2 letters will be in order, however, and should be quite easy to remember because when put together they form the name of the Alef-Bet. That's right, the first letter is Aleph. It is a guttural letter. It's called guttural because it is formed from the throat as opposed to the lips, teeth, or palate. Guttural letters will have certain tendencies and certain rules in common when it comes to vowels and spelling later on. So I'm just pointing out that this is a guttural for the benefit of your future self, but that isn't really important right now. Technically, Aleph is made by slightly stopping the breath. It is like the interruption in the middle of the English interjection, uh-oh. Hebrew, at least originally, was written without any vowels. So if you wanted a word that began with a vowel sound, you would need some sort of placeholder consonant in order to sort of hang the vowel from. It lets you know that you need to make a vowel sound before the next consonant in the word. This same letter eventually evolved into the Greek letter alpha and the Latin letter A, but those languages have actual vowels, and the A has been repurposed in those languages to make a particular vowel sound. Or at least usually. English sometimes abuses the concept of an alphabet to the point that we don't know what to expect, especially when it comes to vowel sounds. In Hebrew, though, the Aleph itself is silent. I've also listed that it is a formative letter. 11 of the letters in the Hebrew Alef-Bet have special purposes in the grammar of the language, and Aleph is one of those letters. It is a prefix used in conjugating verbs, but we're not going to worry about that yet. I've also listed that it is a mother letter. There is a tradition in Jewish mysticism of classifying the letters into 3 groups. Mother letters, which are sort of archetypal to the 3 different major types of sounds. Double letters, which each have 2 variant sounds, one hard and one soft, or at least historically held this distinction. And simple, single, or sometimes called elementary letters, which fit into neither of the other categories. The ancient pictogram of the letter Aleph depicts the head of an ox, a living, breathing animal. Breath is connected with life, and the ox is also a symbol of strength. Aleph, being a mother letter, is the archetypal parent of all of the aspirated sounds, in other words, the sounds relating to the flow of the breath. The other 2 categories are muted sounds and sibilant or hissing sounds, and we will meet one of the other mother letters later in this lesson. Moving on, the next letter today is Bet, also known as Vet. It makes a V sound or a B sound when it has the dagesh inside of it. Having 2 sounds, that's why it's listed as a double letter. It is also a formative letter and often functions as a prefix attached to the beginning of other words, and when used this way it means in, at, or with. The ancient pictogram represents a house. It's like a floor plan with 2 rooms and a door. The concept is a place of safety, protection, the very idea of being indoors or inside as opposed to outside, or the idea of being with your family rather than being out hunting or gathering or tending to flocks. So the pictogram means in, and as a prefix it also means in or with. I think the modern Hebrew letter still conveys the idea of a house pretty well. It's like there's a foundation slab and a wall and a roof over your head, and the front end is open like a door. The dagesh can dwell inside of it to make a hard B sound, or it can leave out the front door, and when it's empty, it makes the V sound. By the way, Paleo-Hebrew and Modern Hebrew are both forms of writing that are used in the biblical manuscripts we have available to study. including those found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The modern Hebrew style of letters was actually originally known as the Aramaic alphabet and was gradually adopted to replace the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet. Our third letter today, which is actually the 13th letter of the Alef-Bet, is Mem. Its sound is like cookies. It is another one of the mother letters, this time the archetypal parent over all muted sounds, because you make the sound by humming while your lips are closed. The shape of the ancient pictogram represents waves of water. And you'll notice that the shape of our modern Latin letter M is still basically the same. It is a formative letter, and it has multiple grammatical functions, but today I just want to point out its use as a prefix to mean from, of, or out of, referring to being from a place. Why is water associated with places that you are from? Science would say that all life came from water. That could be part of it. But settlements, towns, cities, and centers of trade are all located around sources of water, because we humans need water in order to live. So which stream or which river or lake do you live next to? And if you are away for too long, you need to go back to the place you're from to get more water. That makes sense to me. Mem is also one of the 5 letters that have a special feature in the modern script where they change forms when they're at the end of a word. So here's the mem sophite, or in other words, the final mem. The final form is basically a square box. In fact, if you draw a perfectly square box when you are handwriting it, it will be understandable and no one will complain. It is the only final form letter that doesn't have a long tail that flourishes downward from the rest of the text. Although in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that box is pretty different and actually does drop below the line. But you'll never see it like that in modern writing, or in modern Torah scrolls or other books. And now we're going to learn a couple of words. 2 of the first words most children learn. In Hebrew, writing goes from right to left, opposite of the way you're used to in English. So the first letter is an aleph, the second letter is bet, without a dagesh in it, so that's actually vet, or a v sound. The aleph carries a vowel sound with it, so put together, this word sounds like av, and that means dad or father. The other word starts with an aleph as well, but the second letter is a mem, a final mem, because it's the last letter of the word. Again, the aleph carries a vowel sound with it, so when we put it together, this word sounds like m, and that means mom or mother. Why is it an ah sound in av and an sound in m? That's just how it is. It probably has to do with which sound is easier to make with the sound. But if you know the words, you'll look at these and know how to say av or m without any trouble. We'll talk about vowels more in a future lesson, but this does show why there would be motivation later on to come up with a system to represent vowel sounds. It's helpful to have vowels for people who are learning to read and don't know the words already. Now, in modern Hebrew, it is more common to hear these 2 words in place of av and m. You'll hear Abba. Abba, which means father or daddy or papa. You'll note how similar it sounds to papa, Abba. And you'll also hear Ima, which means mother or mommy or mama. And once again, it sounds very similar to mama, Ima. Technically, these 2 forms are loan words from Aramaic, but I'm sure babies don't realize that when they're deciding what word to say. Aramaic is very closely related to Hebrew, and it is found in a few parts of the Bible as well. I'd suggest that the words M and Av came from the meaning implicit in the ancient pictograms, or in other words, the sounds, which undoubtedly came first, got assigned to the pictograms which best illustrated their meaning. Mem, the water, implies source or origin, And just as the letter mem is used as a prefix to mean from, so your mother is the place where you physically came from as an infant. Bet, the house, implies protection, shelter, and strength. A father, in the ancient world especially, would have been the one in whose household you dwelt, the one who provided for and physically protected you, and would have provided for and protected your mother as well, for that matter. Now you know 3 of the Hebrew letters. Memorize them, learn how to write them and recognize them. Practice writing the words that we've learned and sounding them out. And once you're comfortable with these, come back for the next lesson.